This is Tyler. He's in my ward. But I don't know all your credentials. Are you still a student? Are you working now? What?
Yeah, so I'm a grad student at BYU um, in mechanical engineering. So nothing to do with family history, but
Okay, it's job security.
but yeah, I love like tinkering with family history in my free time. So that's kind of how I came across the stuff I'll be talking about today. But yeah, just doing grad school, and my wife is in law school at BYU, and we have two little girls that keep us on our toes. You might hear them in the background throughout this thing, so hopefully.
I love that. I
Yeah,
love hearing children. Well, we will turn the time over to you then and let you teach us.
cool. Um, yeah, thanks for having me on. I had reached out to Sister Rogers about a question with some military records a few weeks ago, and ended up telling her about this project I was working on, and she asked me to speak on this. So, um, anyways, hopefully it's helpful to you, either to your personal research or to anyone you might be able to help. It might be a little maybe unconventional. It's not like a ancestry or family search tutorial necessarily, but it's I think it's really cool, and hopefully it piques your interest a little bit. So I'll go ahead and share my screen. So I have a few slides to just introduce. We don't want that. Okay. I have just a few slides to introduce this topic, and then I'll just share my desktop and go to the website, go to My Maps, and just kind of walk you through how you might set this up. And if I'm moving too fast, just let me know, ask whatever questions you have. Yeah, we'll go from there. So this is using My Maps, which is part of Google Maps, to map your family history in a custom way. Which I've tinkered with this over the last year, and I actually found out there was a Roots Tech session on My Maps just a few weeks ago, after I had already planned on giving this presentation. And so I was super excited about that. I would encourage you to watch that as well. She kind of goes through this in a different kind of perspective. The way I've set it up is to use these maps to kind of visualize my recent ancestry, my grandparents, great-grandparents, back a few generations, to see kind of where they came from, how they migrated to the US, what connections I could make between the families. The Roots Tech conference session uses My Maps in her research. One example was she had this ancestor that had there were multiple men in the town where this ancestor lived with the same name, and she used My Maps to basically distinguish the three names from each other. So she knew which records belonged to her ancestor and which ones belonged to a neighbor who had the same name but might have lived on the other side of town, that sort of thing. I thought that was really interesting. So anyways, there's probably lots more you could do with this, but I'll just cover a little bit today. So as a background, a few years ago, I just had this sort of realization that while I liked family history, I didn't know my family as much as I thought I did, or as much as I wanted to. We watched the movie Coco a few years ago from Pixar. If you haven't seen that, it's great. You can feel the spirit of Elijah while you watch a Disney movie. It's awesome. But in the movie, the main character goes to the other side of the veil, and he recognizes all these family members by name and by face. And I had this realization that, if I was to go to the other side of the veil, the spirit world, I've heard some of their names. If you were to tell me their names, I would say, yeah, that's my family. But I would have no idea who is who, which side of the family they came from. And so I had this urge to correct that. So I started every year, I would start focusing on a specific ancestor. And I'm starting with my great-grandparents, and I'm still in the process of learning more about them. But as I've learned more about them, I've looked at places they've lived and where they came from. One day I noticed an interesting connection. So this lady right here is my great grandma Melba. She's my dad's mother. Yeah, my dad's mother. This lady is my mom's mother. Her name's Alberta. So they come from completely different sides of my family tree. And I found out that they were actually born in the same town. And I thought that was really interesting. And because this great grandmother, I knew that her family came from Canada. But what I didn't know is that she was born in Idaho and moved to Canada when she was 2 or 3 years old. But it sparked some curiosity. You know, did their families know each other? Did they, I don't know, just the possibility that they could have interacted at work or at the grocery store or whatever was just really interesting to me. And so I started to wonder, what other connections maybe are there between different branches of my family tree? For instance, as well, I knew that I had a lot of family in England that came from England, and I have a brother that's serving in Manchester right now. But at the time, I didn't know if I had any family from Manchester. I only knew England. That's all I knew. And so as I started this project, all these kind of ideas kind of led me to this map idea that if I could somehow map all of these ancestors onto the same map, I could see everything at once and kind of make some connections that way. That I thought that if I could do that, that would be cool. And I was able to do that with this. One other point I'll make before I get into it is regarding headstones. As I was researching my family, I kind of made this goal that, if I was focusing on this person, I would try to celebrate their birthday. I would try to, look up family recipes they had, try to really connect myself to their life. And as well, if it was possible, to try to visit their grave, if it was within a reasonable distance. And I found quickly that as I tried to visit some of these graves, it was really hard to find them. They were really, sometimes it's a needle in a haystack, especially if the grave is very flat. It's not something you can see from far away. And so anyways, this map project has also led me to being able to not only plot the town that they were buried in or the cemetery, but I can even get as exact as the GPS coordinate of where their gravestone is, so that now I have this database in a sense. If I go to visit a cemetery, I can just pull up my map and go straight to their gravestone instead of having to search all day to find it. So that was something else that sort of led me in this direction that was kind of cool. So anyways, what is Google My Maps? So Google Maps is something you're probably all familiar with, that we all use for directions. My Maps is sort of an offshoot of that, where you can create your own custom map with markers. You can make notes, add photos. So here I have a photo of my great-grandparents in front of their home in Orem. And it's not zoomed in really, but if you zoomed in, it would be at the exact address here. I can put the dates that they lived there. So it's kind of cool. It's made up of layers that you can turn on and off. I'll show you what that looks like. And then you can, in the map, you can manually pick a spot on the map and say, I want a marker here. Or you can create a file that will import everything for you. If you are trying to do a lot of stuff, sometimes that's easier. And I'll walk you through each of those things. So we'll go ahead and get started. So here, if you just Google My Maps or Google My Maps, this very first entry should take you right to that website. And actually, I was going to share this in the chat if you guys want to. Let's see. I'll just do that real fast, just so you guys have the link in case it's hard to find later. Where is the chat? There it is. Yeah. Okay. Website. So if you click on this, it'll bring you to this page. It's kind of home page here, and you can hit get started. Here I've already made some maps but for you, it's probably empty. So you just hit create a new map, and then the world of possibilities are open to you. There's lots you can do with this. So here it'll just open up the map. From the get-go, you can change what the map looks like. Here's a satellite version. I haven't really tried these other ones. Some of them look kind of weird, but maybe kind of cool. This one, I think, does like mountainous terrain or something once it loads. So that's kind of fun. But this, anyways, this is it. If I look at these are called layers, where basically you can have a group of markers that are underneath this layer. And then if I wanted to hide all of those markers, I could just uncheck it, and then I wouldn't see any of it. That'll make more sense later. I'll just delete this for now. So if I wanted to just go ahead and, well, actually I have a demo map opened. I'll just go to that. So here I've already added a few markers just to kind of show you what it might look like. This is not really family history related. But for instance, here, if I wanted to plot different hikes or something around Provo, one option you can do is hit this add marker button at the top. Then wherever you click next, it will create a marker. So I could click randomly over here, and now it makes a marker right there, and I can add a title to it. My favorite hike or something. You can add notes there, description, save it. If you click this paint icon, or I guess it's called style, then you can change the color of it. You can make it a different icon, a bike or the hiker. With family history, I've used a lot of different ones. Actually, I have examples down here. So they have a baby icon that I use for the birth. There's a cemetery icon. There's a home icon for where people live that I use. I use the heart icon for where people get married. You can be creative with this. This really was awesome. They actually have a Captain Moroni icon. Go figure. So I use this for missions. I just thought that was pretty cool. They also have a question mark icon that I've used. So in one of my layers on one of my maps, I plotted all of I have markers for every gravestone of my ancestors, but instead of the cemetery icon, I chose to do a check mark or an X based on whether I've been there or not. So I could keep track of, oh, I haven't visited this gravestone before. But if I didn't know where the gravestone was, I just made a question mark. And that kind of helped me know that I need to do more research or investigative work there. So in addition to just placing markers, you can also search for places. So if I wanted to search Provo Peak, I could do a specific address, 200 North, 300 East, or whatever. Oh, that didn't work. Let's try again. If I click on that address, it'll go straight there. And in order to add a marker to it, you can just click this Add to Map button. And now you don't have to search for the address. You know, manually, by zooming in and everything, you can just put it in the search bar if you know where the address is. If you just have a town name, you know, it might be just a city that you know. It might place it somewhere randomly in the city, but it'll go right to that city. One thing though is sometimes with family history, you'll come across places that are no longer called by that same name. You know, in the 1800s, 1700s, the city might have been called something, but you might not be able to find it. So in that case, I've had to use Google to just kind of figure out, okay, where's the modern day equivalent of this town? And then I'll just put the marker there and maybe make a note somewhere that this used to be called such and such. So going back to these markers, so So I have two different layers here. One was for these hikes, one was for all these other icons. If I go ahead and uncheck this, suddenly all of them disappear. Same with the hikes. And so it can be nice if you have different, maybe you have a layer for every person, and sometimes you want to just see one person's info at a time. One other cool thing down here, I have an example of how you can create areas. So here's the ward boundaries of the Freedom Fifth Ward. All I did was I pressed this draw a line button, add line or shape. And then when you start clicking, it will draw these lines. And if you connect all of them, it creates this shape. And what's kind of cool about it is it tells you the acreage or the square mileage of whatever you drew. And so sometimes you'll come across records that say they owned this much land, and maybe you kind of want to see how much that actually looks like. So that's something you can kind of do to get a feel for area. You can do the same with the distance. If you just have one line and you hit enter, it will tell you how far that line is. So different tools that you may or may not use, but are kind of cool to just sort of play around with, and maybe they could be helpful. So yeah, that's all I really had from the demo map. This is a map that I've made for one of my family lines. When I started this project, I had this grand idea. It kept evolving over time, but when I found out about these layers, I thought, oh, I could put everyone's info on one layer if I just wanted to see it all. But I could also split it up and do one layer per person, per family. But then I realized there's actually a limit on the number of layers you can have per map. So I think you can have up to 10 layers. And after that, if you want to do more layers, you have to create new maps. So I started creating a new map for each line of my family tree. And we'll see, maybe you want to do just one map per person or per family, and each person in the family has their own layer or whatnot. But so this is one of my family lines. And so if I do everything all in one layer, you can see this can tell me a lot of information. You can color code it based on which family they're from or whatnot. The Critchfield line primarily comes from the UK area, and anyways, it's kind of cool to see each of these has its own name, and you can add a label to it, a date, some notes. And so when I started this project, I did something very similar to this, all manually. So I went to each place, clicked the location, put the marker, and named it. And that got kind of tedious over time. So if you're doing a lot of points, I'll show you in a little bit, there's an easier way to do that. But that's totally something you can do. Yeah, so you can plot different locations. And this kind of helped me see too that I have, whenever I thought about my ancestry, I thought of the different countries that I was from. It was also kind of helpful to see that there's other, even parts of the United States that I was from that I hadn't really known about before. One thing I'll show you here is you can also add custom icons. So for this one, my grandpa was in the Army. I couldn't really find a good symbol that looked like something that would represent that. So if you click on more icons, you can come down here and create a new custom icon, and you would just have to upload a new image. So I found a random picture of a flag and just uploaded it, and then I could use it as an icon. I don't know, there's lots of icons. Most of them you probably don't need to worry about, but maybe you can get creative with that. Let's see. Before I continue, are there any questions on how to do any of this? If not,
how much time does this take you, this looks like it could be a very time-consuming project, or with the computer, is it a lot easier, a lot quicker, or
Yeah.
what?
That's a good question. It depends on how much you want to do with it, I guess. If you want to do, so I went back 5 or 6 generations and tried to do the locations for everyone, and that did take a lot of time. So this isn't something that you could just do really quickly, but maybe you want to start small and just kind of see how it goes. I'll go ahead and show you how it could be faster. So if you come over here to add layer, another thing you can do is if you have an Excel file or a Google Sheets file, you can put all the information in there, and then you come over to import and it will do it all for you, or most of it. So here I'll show you what that might look like. So in Google Drive, I have a folder where I have just all my sheets. I just have one for every person. That's kind of how I organized my information. And then if I wanted to combine them, I could. But this is, for instance, this is my grandfather. You need a column. You need at least one column where Google Maps will know where to put the marker. So you can label it, location or something. And so whatever is in this column, I guess each of these rows refers to one marker on the map. And whatever is in the location one is where it will place the marker. Everything else is bonus if you want to do it. So I put a label column because you can, that could make it easier if you can say, oh, I want all of the markers with this label. For instance, with the residence label, I want all of those to have the same symbol, the home symbol, or whatnot. The date and the notes, they're just kind of good pieces of information for me, so that when I click on the marker, they pop up with the information, and so I can kind of have everything in one place. But you don't have to have these. You could just do the location column. Oh yeah, question?
You could put in there, we're probably related if he lived in Oakley, Idaho.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, we had a bunch of bears live there for a while.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, his whole family is from Oakley.
Yeah, that's cool.
I see the option of putting where a person lived each U.S. Census. And I think that would help you follow the migration pattern across the United States of an ancestor. If you have where they lived, at least in the censuses, if you didn't know, in between times. I think you could really follow a family's journey across the United States by following residences and census locations.
Yeah, totally. Something cool that this project helped me realize was I had started with basically just each person's family search profile page, and I would get anything that basically the censuses had for residences or birthplaces or whatnot. But it taught me pretty quickly that wasn't enough for me to make sure that it was accurate. Like you said, maybe they lived in other places between censuses, and so I needed to go and read through their stories, their memories. Maybe someone made a note somewhere that they moved to this place, or maybe the family search record just isn't. Maybe someone edited it recently and it's actually not the right place, and so that was a good experience for me, I'm kind of a novice with family history, to remind myself that as you do your own research into your family, you can discover a lot of cool stuff that might not be necessarily on the family search page, like from census records or whatnot. But yeah,
another thing.
Oh, go for it.
Another thing that I personally would like to see is I have a son who's retired military, and all in all, the Army sent him to like 17 countries. And I would like to see the map of the different places that he was with the Army at different times, with maybe a line drawn to show from this place to this place to this place.
Mm,
I think that would be very interesting to show all of the places that he went, from Albania to Kosovo to Macedonia to Germany to Kuwait to Iraq. I think that would be very interesting to see a map of the different places the Army has sent him through the years. That would be more personal history than family history.
Yeah.
But personal history is part of family history.
yeah.
Tyler,
yeah.
can I ask you something? Where does your work, where does this file saved? Is it saved in My Maps, or do you save it on?
Oh. Good question. So you can save it anywhere. So this could be an Excel file that you could save anywhere on your computer, or this Google Sheets file. I just have it in my Google Drive. So I just, I know with Google Drive, I think you can create, like these Google Sheets files don't count towards your storage at all. So if I go to my homepage of Google Drive, I just created this folder so that the main thing is you need to know where to find it. That's really the only thing. So inside this folder, I created different folders for my different family lines.
Okay.
That's what I did. Whatever's easiest to you though, really.
I would want to have a place away from the cloud where I had a copy. How would I go about putting it, say, on a flash drive so that I would have my own copy?
Okay, yeah. Well, yeah, if you do that with an Excel file, I'll show you how to import this so that you can kind of see that process. Where you save it doesn't, it doesn't matter. So you could create an Excel file, save it to a flash drive. If you need help with that, you let me know. But then when you go to the map and you do import, then you can just go to that flash drive location and it'll import it. So it's not saved to the map at all.
But would it have all of the little icons that I put on it in that file?
So that, yes, the symbols of the icons, I'll show you what it looks like. It does almost everything. So if it's on Google Drive, like I have it, I can just go to the My Drive tab and then find it. I think his is at the bottom. Yeah. So, and then I can import it. But like I said, it could be saved on your flash drive and then you can just find it there.
Oh,
The first thing it will ask you is which column. So it read the labels that I had put. This first row is all these labels of each column. It read those, and now it's asking me, okay, which column is the location column? So I go ahead and click that. And then it wants to know which column is the title. You might not have one for the titles, but that's kind of helpful. For me, that's the label column. What I said was the label column. And so I have all the other layers turned off. So we should only see what I just imported. So now it has all the markers that were in that file. It doesn't, as of right now, I don't know of a way to tell the file what color or symbol to use. So I have to do that after the fact. But right now it has every file right where I put it. And you'll notice some of these I just had a city name or even a country name if that's all I knew. But for others, I could put exact addresses, or even for the headstone, I could put the exact GPS coordinates. And it,
By the way, a lot of those GPS coordinates are going to be found on Find a Grave.
yes, Find a Grave or Billion Graves are helpful with that. So when you import it, it has them all of the same style. So if you come here, that's the uniform style. That's if you want them all to just be the same. If you don't, you can click on this and you can either do a sequence of numbers. So like you were asking, maybe you want to know the migration. And so if they're in order, this could tell you first they were here, then they were here. Or you could do individual styles. And this pulls up basically each marker separately. And then I can come here and change just that marker on its own. You can also label all of them by type. So for instance, sort by data column label. In this case, everything with the residence label can be the same marker, the same style. And that can make it a little faster if you know, okay, I want all of these to be the home symbol, and then you don't have to do all of them separately. Yeah, so now that we went through that process, these files are not saved on the map. They're just somewhere on either your computer, on a flash drive, on Google Drive in the cloud maybe, and it will just read the file in, but it's still saved wherever you had saved it previously. Did that answer the questions, or are there still questions on that?
That sounds good.
Okay.
Can you
So-
give
Oh, yeah.
your little signals for the location? Can you put that on it? Can you get that on a smartphone? Can you put an app for a GPS number on your smartphone? And how do you so you got the number? How do you find the grave or the location?
So how do you get the number in the first place? Is that the question?
How do you read it? Okay, so if somebody's got a number there, and you've got your grandfather's in Oakley, and I'm up looking for my family to see if you know your family's in the same cemetery, and it says you got a GPS number.
There's different ways to do that, John. I'm sure that there is a program that you put on your phone. Because I'm who I am, the program I would use is I would look it up on geocaching.com, because that is an app that I'm used to using. But my husband, who takes hikes, uses a different app on his phone to get longitude and latitude.
Okay,
So they're available. You would just have to play a while to figure out which one worked best for finding cemeteries.
okay, so but there are apps you can put on your phone, and
Yes,
yeah,
there are.
okay, that's cool.
But
Yeah.
like I said, on Find a Grave, a lot of at least the cemeteries are marked with a GPS location, and lots of graves are marked with a GPS location, but not all of them.
Can I ask something else, Tyler, about saving? Is
Yeah.
this an auto save thing for the most part as you're working on it? Is it just save as you work?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And so one thing, yeah, for the map itself, just so yeah, I guess it says right here, all changes are saved. It should be pretty instantaneous. Yeah, which is really nice. One reason I like to do this import method is because then if I need to redo, let's say I want these markers on a different map. For instance, I want one map for myself, but I want a different map. With each of these maps, you can share it with your family so that they can see the same things. Maybe I want a different map so that I can share with other people. Instead of having to go through and redo everything, I could just import the same file to both maps, and that made it a lot faster. I wanted to show you, if I zoom in, so this is his gravestone location. There's one kind of weird thing that happens with my maps. So if you'll notice here, this is the GPS coordinate that I gave it, that I told it to go to. And this is the GPS coordinate that it actually went to. And it's really close, but it's not exact. So you have a couple options. You could just move this around. For instance, I know that it should be up here, but if you don't know that yet, you could move it around until the numbers are pretty close. This is the trick that I learned. I don't know why it does this in the first place, but this is what I learned. If you edit it, so this little button right here will edit this information. If I just add like a 1 at the end, or even a 0, that doesn't change anything about the coordinate. But now when I save it, it will move exactly to the right location. So it's kind of annoying that it doesn't go there in the first place, but at least there's a way around it, so you don't have to spend too much time on it. That's just for GPS coordinates. For everything else, it's pretty exact. Brother Baird, you were talking about Oakley. So here I've plotted, here I have the burials for all of that side of the family. And this is pretty cool. I actually have probably 7 or 8 ancestors in the Oakley Cemetery. So that's kind of cool.
Huh.
But this is where their graves are. So if I wanted to go, you know, you don't have to use this to find graves, you know, like Nancy was saying, there's GPS coordinates on Find a Grave or Billion Graves. But if I were to go to the Oakley Cemetery, I would have to pull up each individual page on the website. That could get kind of annoying. So this is kind of nice to just have it all in one place. With these cemetery ones, I don't know how to do this with a file, but after you've imported something, you can put pictures on there too. For instance, if I didn't know what it looked like ahead of time, I could put this picture on the map so that when I go to the the cemetery, I would know what I was looking for. So to do that, you press this camera icon and it will pull up this page. So you can just, if you have a picture saved on your computer somewhere, so here's a grave picture I have, I could just upload it and then it just does it all for me. Let's say I upload this one. This is the wrong grave for this person, but I can show you how to delete it if you mess up. So it will upload, and so you can upload multiple pictures. So I have already had 2 photos on here, and I just added this 3rd one, and I can save it. If I made a mistake and that's the wrong photo, I can come back and hit this trash can button, and that will delete that photo. In addition to photos that you have saved on your computer, you can also come and just do an image search on Google. With family history, you might not really need that. But if you wanted to, there's that option. You can also search for videos on YouTube. You know, maybe, I haven't tried this before, but maybe if you have a family video that someone has uploaded to YouTube, you could insert that link to that video on this marker or something. Anyways, I don't know if you'll ever use that, but okay. There's another thing I wanted to show you. So this is the first map that I did with all of my family lines. And it was kind of cool to just see. This is before I really knew what I was doing. So this was before I knew how to manually import things. And with this, just to give you a feel for what it could do, I've color coded them for each of my 4 family lines, my major lines. And it's just kind of cool to see where each line comes from. On here, I've also plotted all the missions of all my cousins and stuff. So I can see, oh, this person served not only, you know, close to this other person maybe, but where all of our family were born or whatnot. one other cool thing I found was with the area function, I actually plot the mission boundaries of where people had served. And that was kind of cool because I learned, so over here, the blue area here is where my grandpa served back in the 50s. And it was the Northern States Mission, I believe, North Central States Mission. And I was able to ask my grandma about, which specific cities he served in and put those markers here. Then later I learned that my wife's father served in the same area. It was just called a different name, the Northern States Mission. And after talking with him, I learned that the boundaries were a little bit different, but mostly they overlapped, and that they actually had served in one of the same cities, 20, 30 years apart, which was just really cool. I wouldn't have known that without the map being here. And anyways, that's something else I tried doing. I'm trying to remember if there was anything else I want to talk about, but that's kind of the main gist. Oh, is there a question?
Are you able to print maps?
Yes. Yeah, good question. So up here, if you see the 3 dots, you can copy maps. If you wanted to build off of this map, for instance, you can like put it on websites or whatnot, but this bottom one is to print a map. And you can select the size. So I'll just show you what it looks like. I don't know if it looks very good right now because it will list out everything on the side here, which for this page looks pretty good, but then it just kind of keeps going on the other pages. So I'm not sure if there's a good way. Perhaps if I do the landscape option, that will look better. But that's something you could kind of experiment with.
Do print screen and use OrphanView. Print screen and then paste it into OrphanView and print it from there.
That's true.
Crop it.
Oh,
So landscape, I guess, look a little
weird thing that you use all the time.
One other thing, Zoom is blocking my button. Okay, I'll do this. Here we go. Okay, another thing you can do is this button called share. You can go ahead and you can get a link, and then if you send that to people, they can open up the same map and kind of collaborate with you. So for instance, actually, one reason I created the demo map is so I could share it with all of you. So you can have kind of a starting point. So we'll go ahead and copy this. And then if I go to the chat and put that in, if you click on that link, you should be able to pull this up. And then if you want to create your own map from it, I would come up here to the 3 dots again and hit copy map. And then when you hit copy, you can rename it, and that will be your, as long as you don't check this box, that will be your map that no one else has access to, if you want to do that. You can also hit preview, and that will kind of show you what it might look like. So I can't remember if you share it with people, I can't remember if they can actually edit it or if they just can view it. But this is kind of what some people might see when they open up your map. Yeah, was there anything else? Yeah, any other questions?
I have a comment before it gets too late, Tyler, and that's, I noticed your ancestor at Camp Roberts. I mean, this deals with the map, but not with your training and everything. But my dad was there during World War II, just about 10 years before your ancestor. And
Okay.
somehow I ended up with a rollout map, aerial map rendering by an artist of the entire camp. And I keep
Oh.
that with a picture of my dad outside of the barracks. So if that's something you're interested in, I don't know if we copy it or not, but it's a very interesting rendering of the camp, and considering the time that it was taken when they didn't know but what the Japanese were going to come into California, that they actually had a picture of the map back then, or the camp. But anyway, I just want to let you know that, you know, I haven't seen you for some time, Tyler, and I'm going to get back off so you get back to training. But I do have that map in case you'd be interested in it.
Yeah, thank you.
It's in a cardboard case that rolled up, and it's like a big scroll. So anyway,
Yeah, that's awesome.
just
I'll
a side
definitely
note.
come look at that. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, I'm going to come back to the presentation. I think I made a few notes on here. Yeah, so there's only 10 layers. I talked about the GPS coordinates, inserting photos. Okay, yeah, and then there's that Roots Tech training. Like I said, I think if you just search Google Maps or Google My Maps, you should be able to find it. But yeah, that's all I kind of had to share. This is definitely not like an exhaustive or even a rigid thing that you have to do. But hopefully this has given you some ideas of maybe stuff you could do with your family. I used it, like I said, to just kind of learn more about my family, but I'm sure you could use it for whatever research purposes you might be looking into, looking at migration, looking at, yeah, are there connections between different families, or maybe trying to pinpoint, maybe you don't know the location of where a child was born or something, but if you can kind of plot where their migration was or where they lived before and after, you can kind of be pushed in the right direction there. But yeah, anyways, hopefully you guys can probably learn even more on your own as you experiment, and if you ever need help with it, feel free to reach out. I know this was kind of a fire hose of information, but hopefully this gave you enough to go off of. So
I have a question.
Great.
Yeah.
If there were 3 or 4 of us who are, you know, sometimes the younger people just have done enough computer work that they just automatically now, oh, you do this and you do that. But some of us aren't that computer literate. Once we get opened up again, would you be open to some Saturday morning or some weekday evening having a workshop where only enough people came that we'd have computers for everybody, and you could go around and help each one of us step by step create a basic map?
Yeah, definitely.
I think that something like that could be helpful to several of us.
Yeah.
Another thought I had as you told purposes, in my Michael family, everybody named their sons after each other. So I've had to go through with my John Michaels and put a birthday after each one. So like I know that if I'm talking about this John Michael, it means I call him John Michael 1799, and I call another John Michael 1852 because there are too many John Michaels, it gets too confusing. On a map, you could do that. You could make you could give each John Michael a different color,
Mm-hmm.
and that would help you follow through with that. I see that as a useful purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a huge potential here. Michelle said she's geeking out. She's in the chat. She's excited.
Good.
I think we all are. You know, I love the hands-on idea. That would be so awesome to do that. Oh my goodness. Thank you, Tyler. This has been awesome. And I hope it's okay. We've been recording it and we're going to put it in the list. We have a list of all our classes that we've had. And then Heather advertises it on all the Facebook pages, or at least our family history one, so that people will know they can come back and look at it.
And she actually puts them on YouTube if you don't object.
Yeah, that's totally fine.
So much
I
potential.
think all of us had our eyes opened tonight. I think this was a wonderful lesson. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah, this is
very, very well
awesome.
done, easy to follow.
Yeah, I got lots of ideas.
And I forgot to
time.
mention, yeah, no problem. I forgot to mention that one other reason I think this is cool is, at least for me personally, I'm a very visual learner. And so even if I could read off this person was born in Oakley, or this person came from, England or Denmark, for me, that just kind of goes in and then goes back out. I don't really retain it. But if I can see it on a map, it sticks with me. And so perhaps that's true for you as well. Or if not, maybe there's people that you are trying to help get into family history. And maybe they're just not that interested because it just doesn't stick yet for them. But maybe something like this map could help it stick for them. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah,
The
absolutely.
migration pattern possibilities are great.
Yeah, there's tremendous possibilities with this. It's awesome.
Yeah,
Thank you
Yeah, thanks for
again.
having me.
This is wonderful.
good job. I got,
Well, are there any other questions for Tyler?
After we all practice with it, we'll have questions.
Yeah, that's true.
Yep.
Spread the word. I'm surprised we didn't have more people, but those of us who are here are very excited. Well, we can have a closing prayer then, and then if anybody has questions afterwards, we could do that.